And, oh, okay.
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. Shall I keep going? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, he withdrew a little bulb of water and put a bead of it on a microscope slide and flattened it out with a slip of fine glass to look at it. And he saw a whole range of things. Double balls track ruled lines, swimming back and forth across the slides, nodding as they flow. Comma-shaped cells snake and cruise. Jelly dolls rotate. Slipper-shaped cells creep, water swirling in their wakes. A giant 50 times as long as the prey in its translucent belly hurtles across and out of sight on the slide. 300 years ago, Van Leeuwenhoek polished glass into lens. For his reports of animalcules, he called them, and cockles, he was mocked by the Royal Society. Even now, these microscopic creatures live in encyclopedic mute darkness. Their conversations have fewer human eavesdroppers than the chatter that falls from the stars. I found that very moving and profound in a way, in a way I take it to mean that there's so much about this island Earth that we have yet to learn about. And yet we seem to be perennially in this day and age focused on what's out there in the sky instead. And that's something I suppose we could talk about and debate for the rest of our meeting, but that's another subject. Again, that comes from The Songs of Trees by David Haskell, which is a very interesting book, I think. So Cameron, I saw you had the agenda there. Let's pull that back up on the screen so we can all see where we are, particularly me.
Of course.
Yeah. So I want you to look at the agenda. As I said, it's a rather light agenda today, but I want you to also notice that there's nothing under communication. Normally, members of the tree board, if they have communications, that falls under item 10 on our agenda, front lines with tree board, but there may be something more significant that Cameron and I overlooked last week when we were talking about the agenda. Cameron, were there a couple items maybe you checked in with Ashley about? And I presume that she probably didn't have anything to add, if that's the case.
No, she didn't have anything to add.
Okay. So at this point, have a look at that. If there's anything else, by the way, that would constitute old business or new business that you think is going to need specific attention and isn't noted there, please let me know what it is.
Well, we were going to talk a little bit about the Canopy Survey, but I think we probably need Ashley to do that. So
yeah.
So
there was something else, Doug. Doug, what was it? There was something I mentioned to you in my email. I thought maybe we needed to talk briefly about. Was that it, or was it something else? I can't remember now. Well, maybe it'll come to one of us as we go along. At this point, then, I need a motion to approve the agenda, if there's nothing to add or change. Margaret, you want to move that we approve the agenda? Do you agree with that?
Well, I was just wondering if there's Mike D is in the chat and he said something about ST3 and the SEPA. I don't know what that stands for. Was he suggesting that's something we need to talk about?
Is that regarding sound transit, the sound transit BRT project and the SEPA?
Yeah.
Review?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you have anything to say about that, Cameron? Is there anything in there? I know there's tree removals associated with that. Maybe that's the issue.
Correct, yeah. But I'm not familiar with the project at all, so I wouldn't be able to provide any sort of update regarding that.
Can I, Mike, thanks for bringing that up. Cameron, I want to make a note with you, Cameron, that we consider that as an item for the next agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's come up before. It came up 1 or 2 meetings ago, and there was a lot of chatter because of the number of trees that were indicated that were going to be removed. And there may not be much that can be done about it, but it would be nice to stay abreast of that, whether that number is going up or down,
Mhm.
What the evolution of that part of the project is from the tree board standpoint.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that would be something for item 11 and to talk about before the next meeting.
Okay.
Somebody in you was going to talk about it, but it is not going to be me. All right, so,
I will move for you then if that's
okay,
if there's
Thanks,
nothing else to
Mark.
add. I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
second, is there a second? Doug,
I second.
all right. Okay, thank you. 2 seconds. All right, then please take a look at the minutes if you haven't already done so. From the last meeting.
I was not, I was out of town for the last meeting.
Yeah.
But if you need my vote to have enough people to approve them, I will do so. Otherwise, I'll abstain since I didn't hear what was going on.
Okay, I don't have any problem with the minutes. Does anybody else? Should we, can we have a,
I'm trying to find the minutes on my computer.
oh, okay. I'll give you a little more time to do that because Julia, sometimes you notice things we missed.
I noticed something that I missed. I accidentally noted Marty's name on the minutes twice in like the present area. So I'm gonna, I'm
okay.
gonna go ahead and edit that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking at that too. I didn't notice it.
Can you put the minutes up, Cameron?
Sure. I'm gonna have to download them because I don't have them handy, but it'll take me 1 second.
You need to see him, Julia, because you had some input on that at that meeting. So
Yeah, I'm trying to find them on my computer.
it should be where the agenda was.
I don't think it was.
Okay.
It's not-
Maybe I think I have it handy if you want to give me the ability to share my screen. Would that be helpful?
Julia, it's in an email that Cameron sent on the 30th of July, if that helps.
I have it available now.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I had it ready to go, but of course I didn't. I really get into trashing things, so I don't have to look at them.
Yeah, I've been known to do that.
Okay, they should be on the screen now. Let me see. I'm gonna see if I can change I have a Mac laptop and sometimes it'll change the color. I got it. Okay. I think that should be more legible.
Okay. Yeah, okay, let me look then. Yeah, it was, one thing was the spelling of Dick Olmsted's name. It's Stead.
Oh, in the approval of the last minutes?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the last minutes.
I see that now. I'll go ahead and modify that. It's
Okay.
STEAD.
Olmsted, OLMSTEAD. You need to
Okay.
add,
I get this is like a little bit of like a side offshoot, but the university I went to had an Olmsted Hall, and I think that's where I get the spelling mixed
okay.
up.
Can you move the,
What university was that? Chicago?
No, I went to university in California.
thank you. There was something else, but I had it noted on the other one and now of course I can't find it.
There's another one, Olmsted down on the adjournment too.
Right here. Okay.
Yeah.
Under new business. And it's just, you've written vice chair to the board, comma, and welcomed nominations.
Mhm.
That's just not English. It needs to be reframed. And he welcomed nominations. I guess you can say
Yeah.
indicated and welcomed, but
Yeah,
a little vague.
Okay. Would Mr. Hone indicated the need to appoint a new chair and vice chair to the tree board? Oh, I see. The grammar.
No, it's just fine.
And
Okay.
he would, yeah, it is okay,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm being nitpicky.
yes, you are. That's okay.
Okay. Are there any other modifications or amendments?
If not, then we need a motion to approve the minutes.
We'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, minutes approved as corrected.
Okay.
I think we're at the point in the agenda of citizen comments. Mike's chimed in with something that will be on our next agenda, and I appreciate that. Anything else?
Oh, I wanted to introduce Bryn Holmesby. She expressed interest in joining the tree board.
Oh, good.
And I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
Hello,
Okay.
hello, my name's Bryn Holmesy, and Margaret had talked to me about possibly joining the tree board. I would be delighted. I'm a landscape historian, trained in the UK and taught at the university level in various universities from California all the way up to University of British Columbia, now retired, of course. And I'd be delighted to just kind of, yeah, be involved with this. I find the trees in Lake Forest Park to be quite beautiful and stately, and it'd be nice to see a lot of them stay the way they are. My husband and I are quite upset about the road widening. Let's pray they don't rip down a bunch of trees and then, in quotes, don't have enough money to build the road. So there you go. And I don't know if there's some way I can put my phone number and or email on the list so that people could get a hold of me if they need to. That would be great.
Bryn, there's a application process, and we'll have to see that you get the I hesitate to say paperwork. It sounds burdensome, but it isn't. The piece of paper, and
piece
maybe
of paper.
with an email, it's possible Cameron can just email that to you. Does that work that way, Cameron? Do you know?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad thanks for your interest, Brent. I'm glad you've joined the meeting here today. And yeah, Margaret told me that she had a neighbor who was interested, and now we know. thanks
Rin
for
would
that.
be a fabulous addition. I just have to give her a little shout out.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very interesting background, something you don't run across someone as a garden historian very often.
Yeah, usually people don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
They think I'm a designer. I'm not a designer.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I would be happy to be involved and see what goes on in Lake Forest Park in regards to the trees. I'm taught in a horticultural department, so, and I have just a smattering of information and studies of horticulture. So I do know my way around the horticultural world a little bit. So I'm
Good.
happy to. That sounds good.
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, well,
As a
again, thank-
landscape historian, I was trying to find out how to spell Olmsted. And so I missed it if you said.
I'm sorry, what?
But
could
is
you
a
repeat
landscape
that?
historian?
Landscape historian, design landscape historian. I know the name Olmsted very well. I used to teach a course with with Grandpa in there, with Papa Olmsted. Yeah.
What is a landscape historian?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
What is a landscape historian?
Well, I guess I could tell you this. This is the way I usually put it. There's a good reason why the Arboretum here in Seattle looks different from Versailles. Now, some of those reasons are pretty obvious, and some of them are not so obvious. And that's where I come in. And I explain that. I explain why that happens, how it happens, and it's quite an interesting study if you look at these, because it tells you a lot about one's own country and culture and appreciation for design landscapes, but it also helps you appreciate other countries, other cultures, other time frames.
yeah, it's a background that becomes very important in garden restoration and preservation.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, absolutely. And I've
Yeah.
done garden restoration before, consulted on historical gardens, but I don't really do that now.
Yeah.
Ah,
Well, who knows? Maybe something will be uncovered in Lake Forest Park and you'll have to apply your expertise.
there
to
you go, there you
preservation
go.
of it. A hidden garden by Beatrix Farrand in Lake Forest Park. How would that be? Okay, thanks, Brent. Now I've lost my place. Oh, our next, I think is that it for citizen comments then?
I have my hand raised.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Howdy, Mike D here. I wanted to thank you all for bringing up the Sound Transit 3 and the SEPA, which is an acronym for like sensitive environmental. I'm not going to remember the name right now. Protection area. No, that's not right.
It's the State Environmental Protection Act.
Thank you. Sometimes I can remember that. Today I can't. And so Sound Transit's doing their special meeting tomorrow where they're going to talk about the 522 BRT and if they're relining their projects or not. One of the concerns is that Lake Forest Park has a number of bushes, trees, shrubs, greenery that's kind of on the going to be affected by this project block, and it's very disproportional to other cities in the area.
Yeah.
And I want to keep in mind that when kind of like the Save Shoreline Trees group kind of got involved and helped try to save some of their trees, Sound Transit partnered with another group to kind of save it and figure out how they're going to either go around it or fix them or not take them out to begin with or replant them. And so I want to make sure that's something that is kind of in mind for Lake Forest Park. Also that, what was I going to say? Just that, darn it, I forgot. Oh, back to the SEPA. There was not a lot of public process for this. It wasn't really announced very well that they were even doing their State Environmental Protection Act thing. And I think it's oversized for the amount of time they gave. They're limited on how big it can be without giving additional time. They only did 2 weeks and it was like, in the middle of a pandemic, of course, and then I don't think it was quite during the summer, but I don't know. I think they need to extend the time and kind of reopen it up and redo it. So I'm encouraged, the Lake Forest Park Citizens Commission, and I think the Stewardship Foundation also made a comment about that. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
So you also made a point about shoreline setting a kind of a precedent in terms of their pushback on the project over in their territory, in terms of how much vegetation and trees were impacted. Is that right, Mike? That's what
Yes,
I heard.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so that begs a lot of participation on the part of Lake Forest Park citizens, if there's a concern about tree removal, certainly. So, and I presume there is certainly among us, but.
Yeah, Margaret asked in the chat if there's a Sound Transit that's doing a special meeting to talk about the realignment. I can probably forward an email to Cameron, who can send it to you, the meeting info, to any of you that are interested in that.
Good. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What realignment is that?
Sound Transit saying that they can't do some of the projects in the Sound Transit 3 ballot measure that was passed in 2016, kind of on schedule due to lack of funding and other challenges. And so their board has been working on figuring out how far out they can push these projects. And so they're calling that a realignment.
Okay.
And so there's a number of cities along the BRT, which is the Bus Rapid Transit 522 proposed line, that are kind of gathering together saying, hey, don't push our project in, way out, because it was supposed to be done kind of in 2023, 24, 25, and they may be pushing it out 6 to 7 more years or further, like the parking garage they proposed 2034 and far numbers out like that. So some of the people want to see this in their lifetime since they voted for it and have been paying for it. And so tomorrow they're thinking that they may actually have a decision on whether they're going to do that. And so the cities in the area have been saying, do your decision, but keep our project, closer in hand. Thanks.
There was a thing in the city for the City of Lake Forest Park monthly newsletter, sort of making that same point. I think I just didn't realize it was called a realignment, because to me, realignment means it moving, 20 feet to the left.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Any other public comments? Okay,
I just have an update on that.
go ahead, Julia.
I said I get emails constantly from Sound Transit talking about the changes they're making. I'm not sure how you sign up for them, but it does keep one abreast of what they're thinking in terms of delaying or omitting some of these things, such as the 522 BRT. So we can all you can stay updated on that. And the city of Kenmore sent things out asking for people to respond and comment. So there's that way that we can make our voices heard.
There might be a checkbox at their webpage or something, something you fill, where you put your email address. As you can see, our next meeting is September 1st. That's the first Wednesday of September. So I hope everybody can be here. I already heard from Richard that he was going to be in town. So, and we don't have any communications this time around, so we can move right into old business. We also don't have Mark Phillips here. He's out of town also, probably not far from where Dick is. Oh, actually, no, he's on the East Coast. But I was hoping for a tree code revision update from him, which he said he would give us at the last meeting. And I'm sorry he didn't forward that, at least either to Cameron or to me, if he had some information. But such as it is, we'll have to wait to find out. I guess something we should keep in mind as a tree board is when we submit these things, they're simply recommendations also. I have to remind myself of that, because when I see that something like this particular item has been sort of sitting in the city council inbox for a while, I might get a little impatient. Then I realize, well, it's certainly not it's not a directive. It's a recommendation from us. So they can choose to do whatever they want to with it. But I think it's still helpful when we have Mark at the meetings that we remind him that that's there, and we'd like at least some feedback to know whether they want to accept those or they have trouble with them, and we have a chance to rework what we recommended. So we'll see. Perhaps next, I'll try to remind him before the next meeting. So what's the latest on the champion trees, Margaret?
Yeah, so most of you guys know that we were trying to think of an event to do for Arbor Day, since we couldn't do things in person. So we decided to have a champion tree contest and to focus, to gear it towards kids, to encourage kids in Lake Forest Park to find our biggest trees, to hunt for our biggest trees. Honestly, like Tim said in the minutes from the last meeting, I was really disappointed in the turnout. We only had 8 kids enter, but at least that's 8 kids who now have, champion trees on their radar. But we listed 5 native species that are common in Lake Forest Park. And we had, actually, no one found red alders or madronas. No one entered with those, but we had kids find the big leaf maples, Douglas firs, and western red cedars. And interestingly, the kids who found the biggest ones were all 8 or 9 years old. So maybe somehow that's my target audience next time. I put out a lot of PR to Shoreline schools and the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts and the Shoreline Christian, but obviously, we'll learn for next time. But
it also went in the city newsletter, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was in a news flash from the city. So
you'd like to think that anybody that knows they had a big tree might have seen that and would have, say, hey, let's submit our tree. But
yeah.
I guess.
And Bryn asked, are these trees just on the street or in gardens? This was anywhere in Lake Forest Park. So I encourage them to, in their yard, in their schoolyard, in the park. So interestingly, two little girls tied for the big leaf maple. They both found the same one in Animal Acres. And the Douglas fir, a girl found a big one in Grace Cole Park. And the boy who found the western red cedar was in a yard kind of east of Ballinger Way. So some anonymous person, if it was one of you, thank you, donated swirl gift cards. We had 10 of them donated. So obviously the winners and the runners up all get swirl gift cards. And I made up a nice official looking certificate for each kid. So Ashley is going to be sending those out in the next week or so.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's good.
I'd love to learn how to reach more folks, but it was my first time.
So how big were the big trees? Were there some really, were there some noticeably big ones or?
Well, you know what, we decided to make it simple. So we had them measure circumference, unlike, the city measures diameter. So the big leaf maple was 238 inches in circumference. The Douglas fir was 165 inches and the western red cedar was 161.
That's pretty good size.
Pretty good size.
Yeah.
Especially the big leaf maple.
Yeah, that's a large big leaf maple. Yeah. Well, that's good.
It has about 9 trunks, and so we Ashley helped them figure out what the official measurement would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the big leaf maple had 9 trunks.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. No, it was just one huge trunk in Animal Acres. Yeah.
Well, huh.
So so I was really disappointed and sad in the turnout, but these kids seemed really excited, and we got some really cute pictures from them of them in front of the trees they found. And so I just was talking with Cameron today about getting a piece and in the next city newsletter about these kids and their big trees.
Yeah. Yeah, there must be another way to, I know you've racked your brain about this, Margaret, but I keep thinking, geez, it seems like something that would have generated more enthusiasm, you know? There must be another way to approach it, but I don't know what it is.
How is this advertised? How do you encourage people, kids to get involved?
I sent out an announcement to the Shoreline schools. I can't remember his title, but the public announcement guy who put it in all the schools' newsletters to the parents. I did the same thing with Shoreline Christian School, and I sent it to the person who communicates with all the Boy Scout troops and the same person who does Girl Scouts in the area. So I thought
Was
I
there
covered
also
my
a
bases,
teacher?
but,
There was a
and it went out in a
teacher.
news flash from the city, an email news
Yeah.
flash.
Yeah, I thought you also had a direct connection with a number of teachers too, that we're gonna try to
I
make
did,
it
yeah.
part of the curriculum or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you did about everything you could do. You know, yeah. Well,
I'm
I'm
not sure
glad.
how I haven't had an 8-year-old in the house for a long time, but I wonder if next year you might consider find a bigger tree. This is the biggest tree we know of, the champion from last year. Can you beat that?
Mhm.
Yeah, I was thinking
And
that
actually,
too.
you could give give some kind of an award to everybody who manages to find a bigger Doug fir, or a bigger
Mhm.
whatever. And
Yeah,
you probably want to go out beforehand. Somebody'd want to go out beforehand and somehow mark the trees that are the current champions, the current gold medalists in the 2021 Tree Olympics.
that's a good idea. Well, and we did talk about just the ultimate goal of starting a champion tree registry for the city. So this kind of maybe kicked it off, but
Yeah,
maybe now we can broaden it to adults and encourage people to, or come up with some program for people to find the champion trees.
that might connect with something that's another topic we have to talk about at our meeting here in a little bit. So I'll try to keep that in mind. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're going to have some happy kids that'll be
Mhm.
filling up their bellies at Swirl there, so that'll be good.
Thanks.
Another piece of old business, a really important piece, is board appointments. So you'll be losing the chair, and we never had a vice chair after I became chair, and I take the blame for that. I kind of let that slip by on our previous agendas and meetings. At this point, I just want to remind you guys that the chair's principal job is to help manage these meetings. That's the principal thing. And that's really shared with Cameron also in a way, although, Cameron is taking minutes, and so that occupies him for, the bulk of our meeting time. But, and Cameron and I meet, we have a phone call or a Zoom meeting a week in advance to talk about what's going to be on the agenda. I also have some obligations that you can see on the work plan that relate to communicating to city officials. And that might be a meeting with the mayor. And I also, when we had the code revisions, it wasn't incumbent upon me as chair to present those to the city council, but I did. So there could be those obligations, but they only come around every so often. So you can tell what I'm trying to do is make sure you have a clear understanding that the chair isn't meant to be the point of where all business for the board is generated and overseen in that regard. All of us, we've all had things that we've been doing over the course of our terms that we had a special interest in. So being the chair isn't a large obligation, I don't think. The vice chair's job is mainly to fill in if the chair is absent. The other obligation for the vice chair was to draft the annual report. So that's not terribly difficult either. So at the end of this meeting, I'm leaving you all with an empty chair and an empty vice chair slots. And I know Cameron would, and the city would appreciate knowing that those positions are filled before we adjourn today. If any of you think that you might be willing to do this, even, I mean, it could be, I don't know whether it could be a temporary appointment, but we could talk about that. So, Margaret, you and I talked about this. We had a little meeting to talk about interpreting the tree code, and we talked about the chair and vice chair positions. I don't know if you thought about it anymore. But like I say, I haven't found this a burdensome job, and it's interesting in its own way also, in terms of, being able to meet with this people like Cameron and Ashley and so on. So, any comments? Any volunteers? Anyone stepping forward?
Well, I would be willing, my husband will kill me, but I would be willing to be chair if one of you who is more of a, who is any kind of a landscape or a plant expert more than I am, is, if you're not going to do it, then I will. I've been the president of a board before, so I can run a meeting. I just don't have all the specialized knowledge that the rest of you have.
The other thing, it might be worth commenting that there isn't an obligation on the part of the vice chair to become the chair necessarily. That often happens in, little organizations like this, but I don't think that's a given. So you don't have to hang back from the vice chair simply because you're worried it puts you in line then for something else. So,
Yeah, I
Margaret,
would need, if I were
Margaret, I'm coming to
chair,
give you a hug. I'm giving you a hug.
I would need someone to be vice chair though, because I should have reminded everyone that, I mean, my usual career is as a tour guide in Europe, and obviously I'm laid off right now, but I hope and plan to be out of, to be in Europe for at least a couple months next year. So someone would need to take over while I'm gone. But that's a ways off, so.
Yeah. Well, where we are at this point is Julia's got her hands full with her project. So I don't dare to look in Julia's direction. But I do, I
You're
am
very
looking at
smart,
Marty and
Tim.
Doug.
She's not letting us because she's got
She
her
knows.
video off.
And she knows where I live also. So. Although I won't be there for very much longer. Anyway, so I'm hoping that Doug or Marty might be interested in being the vice chair if you're going to be the chair, Margaret. And by the way, if you're thinking about it, I think Margaret would be a very good partner as the chair.
There's also, sorry to interrupt, there's also the option of co-chairs. And Margaret, if you don't feel comfortable taking on the position long-term, you're also welcome to assume the position temporarily as an interim chair. But those are some options as well.
That sounds needlessly complicated. If I do it, I'd rather just know that I'm doing it for, what is it, a 1-year term or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm gonna go for it, I'll do it.
Okay.
Well, you kind of said it's dependent upon having a vice chair. So there is an interim nature to the way you described your commitment here. So,
Well,
I mean, you could say we could leave it at interim for now and let other people think about the vice chair obligation and just so we could move through the rest of our meeting at that status, if that works.
Yeah, or we can just, I mean, when I go, it's not going to be till at least March. So we have a long time to cajole someone else into being the vice chair before I go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cameron, can you live with that?
Excuse me?
Can you live with that, Cameron? Because I know you're, okay, good. All right.
That works. Like I said, too, down the line, if we want to move forward with co-chairs, that's a possibility, but the vice chair would assume the position, would take over for the chair in the event that the chair is unable to unable to fulfill their duties for a time period.
It's possible that Richard also he might consider the vice chair position. He's been really busy. He was busy, but he may be in a slightly different position now with the end of the spring quarter that occupied him so much and whatnot. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
Tim,
just
Tim,
speculating.
he's retiring in December
Oh, okay.
from the university, so he doesn't even know if he's going to teach next spring as
Oh,
an
okay.
emeritus.
Yeah,
So until
So-
December, he's very, very busy.
yeah,
But after that, I think, I don't want to volunteer him in any way,
yeah.
but I do
yeah.
know that his time will be more his own after that.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Well, Margaret, I really appreciate you giving consideration to the chair and being willing to take the chair's position for some amount of time. And I think your previous experience gives you all the qualifications that are necessary. So thank you again.
Tim,
New
I have a
Yes.
question, Tim. Do I have to have the board vote to confirm?
Oh, I think you're right, Cameron. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm looking through our code right now, and I think in terms, I forget the term for.
Well, then here's something else. I think Margaret, since she's indicated a willingness to do that, then she must be nominated and we must vote.
I see. Okay.
I think
So
that's the way.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward with that formality.
Okay. I don't know as the current chair if I can make the nomination. Can I do that?
Um.
I'll nominate
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Julia. Who are you nominating?
you. No, wait a minute. No, Margaret. I nominate Margaret Cassidy to assume the duties of chair of the tree board.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Cameron. I would have just zoomed right past that.
Of course. Yeah.
You see, as the chair, Margaret C. Cameron steps in to helps me out all the time. All right, so turning to new business, then number 9. There is, I hope you all saw this. The letter came from the woman that manages the Town Center Commons. The letter is about having a booth at the farmer's market. We've talked about that as a board group in the past, and in fact, I can remember at least one booth occurrence by the board where we had a booth. And that must have been 2 years ago, something like that. Is that right, Julia? Do you remember that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, but what happened was they gave us 2 slots and we couldn't find anyone to person them, man or woman them. And so we
Oh.
never did it.
Oh, I see. It looks like that's changed a bit now. Now they have a single booth with there's a fee for it. The time slot looks like it would be sort of a 2-position thing, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So 10 to 12 and 12 to 2 perhaps, I guess. But we don't have to, I'm bringing this up just as a consideration at this point. It is new business, of course. So I don't know whether there's going to be a scramble to get that booth space or what, but it's something to think about, certainly. It does put you out in front in a place where you're going to get a certain amount of public interaction, and the onus will be upon you to know some things about the code and be able to interpret the code and code enforcement and so on, with some comprehension. So, but I don't think it's impossible. It would be, we had decided before it would be a good thing to do in terms of being able to connect with people who find the whole situation regarding trees and the tree code and so on a mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we should do it. I mean, I'd man it if someone else would come with me. I think even without knowing the tree code by heart, I think it'd be like you say, it might be a cool opportunity to collect questions from people or
Yeah.
concerns or whatever, and I wouldn't feel like I have to answer them. I would just say, thanks so much, I'm writing this down, and I pass them on to Cameron or Ashley, and maybe have a display of the the winning champion trees with some little note about that, and might be a nice opportunity to spread the word about the importance of trees in Lake Forest Park.
Do we have
Yeah.
anything we can hand out aside from the actual tree code? Is there a simplified version of it or a citizen's guide to the tree code or anything like that?
No,
Well,
but
there
in
is-
the past, when we've had booths, which we've had at the Green Fair, there's Cameron, I don't know if you found them, there's a whole series of pamphlets that
Yeah.
Is it the
have-
help topics?
I'm sorry?
Is it the help topics that discuss tree removals?
No, it's more like, why should you take out ivy? Why should you plant native plants?
I see.
There are quite a few pamphlets that Lauren put her hands on that I'm sure are still there.
Okay.
Also, keep in mind, we have a poster that we made up that shows, that just says that we are the tree board. And that can be put up at a table so that people would recognize, we wouldn't just have to write a sign on a piece of paper saying we're the tree board. We have quite a nice poster that we could use at such a table.
Yeah, I have that at my
Yeah.
desk.
Yeah. Is Corey still among the planning department employees there, Cameron?
Corey Roche,
Yeah.
she works over in Public Works.
Oh, has she always worked at Public Works? I'm thinking of, I thought it was Corey that was the public outreach city employee.
Yeah,
Is that-
no, correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Corey's a helpful resource for all this kind of stuff too, in terms of she knows where other things might be that could be used at a booth, whether it's signage or handouts and so on too. But we could always, we can use some of the tree fund we have to make things, and that's been done in the past. Julia's used money out of that to make signage and things also. So, Margaret, do you want to query Amy about what the timetable is and so on about that?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can ask her what dates are available, and then maybe I'll email all of you and see if there are any willing volunteers to come hang out with me.
Yeah, at this point in time, it may be that there's only an opportunity to do this once. I don't know. Maybe one weekend day. So, but yeah, that might be useful, even if it's only one day for a booth.
Okay, I'll do that and I'll email you.
The logical person to have there would be Ashley, but I don't know if we can afford her.
Oh,
Or
so-
she wants to do it.
So Bryn says that she would work with you, Margaret, in the booth. It could be a lot of fun. You will encounter some people, I'm sure, that have some beefs about tree code enforcements and things. But on the other hand, you'll also encounter people that want to talk about trees.
This is a chance to educate them. This is a chance to
Yeah.
reach out with
Yeah.
some new material or some educational material.
Yeah,
I think it's good to hear the beefs, because then you can, either educate them or figure out what we need to do to address them.
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, gather questions. This is a good time to gather questions.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, good. That sounds good. It also segues into another new business item, which is incentives. And I asked Cameron to send you guys out a little excerpt from the Lake Forest Park Community Forest Management Plan about incentives. And the reason is that I think we're at a place where perhaps we can do something with incentives, and looking at this information about incentives. And I apologize, there's some words run together there because when I copied it out of the Community Forest Management Plan, it ran a bunch of things together. I think there are a lot of cities in positions now in their urban forestry programs looking for incentives in order to gain more support from citizens for tree preservation. And to be cooperating with whatever their city codes require to be done with trees. And we've talked about this time and again about, people feeling like they're put upon with the code. So incentives are a way to try to encourage them to partner with the city and to give back to people who are creative and constructive in terms of meeting the needs of the code and also partnering with the city in a shared vision about developing the community forest as well. So anyway, I wanted to get it on the agenda just to begin talking about it. Not that we're going to come up with any particular incentives at this meeting or to agree necessarily on whether we could use incentives. But I thought when I was reading this information, and I don't know if you felt the same thing, but I began to wonder what kinds of things, and this is where communicating with people at a booth might reveal some information useful to incentives. What sorts of things do we want people to be more cooperative about that incentives could help? You know what I mean? We want people to be better stewards about trees, but I think we need to be more pointed about what do we mean by that? What exactly would we like property owners to do? And how do we incentivize that? So at this point, it was clear to me, and there's a notation in here about the flexibility in the municipal codes, that Ashley's in a position to offer incentives, even though she may not use that term, because she can interpret the code in a flexible way that allows her to sort of defer to some homeowners that obviously want to cooperate and are doing the best they can and are maybe dealing with a difficult tree situation. So there can be a give and take there with the city arborist, and that's, in a way, that's a kind of an incentive. So there's that. There's also in this piece a financial incentive that's identified with surface water, or it's identified as storm water utility credit here. Lake Forest Park calls that a surface water utility credit or surface water utility bill. So there might be some ways to modify someone's standing in terms of what they're billed for based on what they're doing with trees. And the reason for that is that the greater the development of a piece of property, the higher the surface water management fee is going to be for that property owner. So encouraging a larger, growing a larger number of trees, preserving a greater number of trees, all of that mitigates surface water management issues. So there could be flexibility in how that person is billed for that. They may get credit for that. I don't know what that would require from a legal standpoint, but that's another thing in addition to Ashley's ability to be flexible about enforcing the code. But it still, to me, begs the question, what kinds of things would we want to incentivize that we want homeowners to do? So we'd need to have all those things clearly identified, I think, and then be able to talk with homeowners about them, to be able to think about if we're going to incentivize that, exactly how is that done? Is it best done with surface water management credit? Is it better done with some sort of a new interpretation for a code enforcement that they might face if they're doing things a certain way? The incentive might work that way. I don't know. But I think I appreciated that this is in the plan, but I think there's more work to be done on this piece to identify some of these things so we have something more concrete to work with. Anybody else have any feelings or comments about that, or any ideas?
Well, I heard about one issue from my neighbor down the street who's done a major remodel, and he was kind of annoyed that he's responsible for managing the strip outside the sidewalk. What's that called?
Yeah, the tree lawn there. Or
The right of way, or is it a
Right of
tree
way.
conservation easement?
No, it's the right of way. It's the right of way.
Yeah.
He's responsible for managing it, and if he takes a tree down there, he has to replace it. But he doesn't own it, and he can't keep people from putting, political signs on there or anything else. And it's just part of the city code, I guess. But those little
That's a good point,
right-of-way
Doug,
things are the
because-
responsibility of the homeowner but
Yeah.
not under the control of the homeowner.
That's a good point, because that's come up before us before. Ashley, I remember, was talking about not being clear on what to do about certain trees in certain situations in the right of way, that the code perhaps wasn't specific enough. And that is a juncture. It's a weird juncture between public and private property there. And that shared responsibility, it seems like there's room in there to adjust that might serve as a useful incentive in some way, you know? I don't know what that would be, but that could be, there could be some flexibility in what occurs in the right of way, that where Ashley could, an incentive would be, she has a protocol that she follows for interpreting that a certain way under certain conditions that gives the homeowner some sort of relief, you know, either it's the relief from the responsibility or something else. I don't know, but I think that's you know, that's a site that is controversial, you know, and perhaps there's a way to incentivize something about it to make it more palatable to property owners. You know, to make them,
You could pay for things people have to do to it. We spent several $100s last year trimming back the trees that are in our roadway strip, right-of-way strip, because they were hanging down. Well, for a number of reasons, they needed to be trimmed. But, you know, again, we had to pay for it, and we don't own the trees.
yeah.
And
So
we
I
get a
wonder
great
if
deal of
this is,
pleasure. I'm not actually complaining, because we get a lot of pleasure out of them. They're big cherries.
yeah.
But nevertheless, it's a little bit of a taxation or a lot of representation kind of thing. It's your responsibility to take care of them and get them pruned, but they're not actually yours.
So maybe, and Cameron, thinking about what you might be recording in the minutes, the right-of-way area could be an area of case study for thinking about how incentives work.
Mm-hmm.
There might be something there. I don't know what it would be. But as I say, we can use the examples in this piece from the Community Forest Management Plan about incentives, saying, well, okay, there can be some arborist flexibilities. I'm a little uncomfortable with just leaving that as the arborist acts with flexibility. There might be a need to create a more specific protocol that's an incentive. You know, that the arborist is going to say, I'm going to let this aspect of the code, I'm not going to enforce that. That might have to be spelled out, you know, so that it's, but the other piece there might be something else. Maybe there is, Public Works will come in and do some trimming under certain conditions that the homeowner's not paying for. You know, that could be an incentive too.
Yeah.
You know, there's care provided by the city, even though the general understanding is that property owners provide the care, but maybe the city could do that under certain circumstances as an incentive. I don't know what it would be, you know. But I'm glad you identified that. I think the right of way has come up before. That's a testy area there. Maybe we could use that as a case study for where there might be some incentives that could work to help the city and property owners do better with managing that bit of property there, because it's in this gray zone the way it's written up now. I don't know what else there is.
Tim?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So I'm not clear on it. I mean, it seems like there could be so many ideas here. Is this document part of is this something of the cities? And if we come up, so if we as the tree board looked into incentives and we came up with, you know, the one we think is the best, what's the next step? What do we do with that?
Well, then it becomes a recommendation, I guess. We would recommend
to the
it
city council.
Well, I mean, I think we'd start with, I think we should always start with Ash, you know, the city arborist, and say, does this seem workable in terms of the scope of your responsibilities? Or is this going to make your job more difficult? You know, I think it starts there. Once we get the arborist to sign off on it, then it gains strength. It isn't just a recommendation from us, it's a recommendation from the board. It also has the arborist's endorsement. And then, you know, then it could go, and then it would go to Steve, and runs the planning department, he would have to look to see what sort of little planning and public works issues might surround this that we haven't considered because we weren't aware of them, that kind of stuff. So I think the great thing about being on the board is we can stick our head up in the clouds when it comes to something like an issue of incentives and just think of all kinds of things and then bring them down to where, they begin to take shape and it seems like a good idea, then we recommend it, So it seems like we've talked about a lot of things where there's a disconnect between where the cities and its code and the property owners are not partnering well. There's a lot of disconnect there, and incentives are one way to help that. It's just that we need to identify specifically where that help comes and using what sorts of incentives. And the right of way seems like that's a possible area where there might be something that can be done there. Also, hazardous trees, maybe there's something about hazardous trees. Marty, did you have a question? I thought I saw.
I had a comment. That's kind of a comment and a question. It's great to come up with ideas with our heads in the clouds, but what have other cities done? There must be incentive programs in other cities. Seattle comes to mind.
Yes.
I mean, they're close.
Yeah.
Let's
There
look
is.
at other cities for ideas.
The city of Kirkland also has a pretty robust tree code.
There you go.
Yeah, Seattle and Kirkland and LFP all have pretty robust tree codes. I think, Marty, you do make a good point about Seattle, looking at what they offer as incentives. If their urban forestry management plan has that provision in it, that's the only thing, is whether or not their plan includes that incentive provision. That would be sort of the determiner of whether or not they would even offer those, so to
Of
speak.
course. Yeah, of course. That's a suggestion. WSU has a whole forestry department. Do they have any recommendations about incentives? I mean, there've got to be other resources we could tap.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right,
for
Marty.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Center for Urban Horticulture probably has some ideas too, and they're a lot closer than Wazoo.
True.
Yeah,
Could I make a comment?
please.
Have you ever done before, has this city ever had in line before a situation where elders could apply to the city arborist for help with their trees? So for instance, if, there might be stipulations that a person can't afford X number of dollars, they can't afford anything up above a certain amount to have the street tree clean, pruned or trimmed. There might be some, or the tree is sick and needs to be doctored and so forth. But so that everybody doesn't want to get on so they don't get on the bandwagon, it would have to be, they'd have to apply for that and then be approved. And that way, some people could actually have that help.
Yeah.
To me, I find it part of my community involvement. It's my duty to my community to keep those trees looking nice. But a lot of people don't see it that way. I know a couple of neighbors who are quite cranky about all that.
That's a good idea, Brent. I think what you've described is you've incentivized then the fact that they're attending to the trees by looking at their condition and saying, these need some work. I would do this. I can't afford it, for various reasons. Yeah. And then, in that case, there's an understandable financial condition, but you also want to incentivize people's attention to what's the condition of the trees in the right of way or anywhere, could be in certainly on public property in a park or something. Yeah, that's something too. But also, and then getting back to what Marty said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel entirely here. I'm sure there's a lot of incentive programs out there. Kirkland, that Cameron mentioned, is certain to have some things going on. I will say that there is a provision, and I can't remember where it is, whether it's actually codified, for someone to create a tree management plan for their property. And if they do that, they're afforded a different interpretation of the tree code for their property once they've put that in place. So in other words, they're allowed more latitude to do things with trees if they're following an overall tree management plan for their property that they devised with the city.
With the city
So-
of LFP?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There is, I can't, Cameron, I can't remember if it's maybe whether it's in this community forest management plan, which means it's a, a vision, or whether it's actually in the code. I think it's in the code.
I'm not familiar enough with our tree code. I can ask Ashley. I can defer it to Ashley to see.
Julian is saying it's in the LFP tree code now.
It is. Okay, I'm gonna pull up.
It's so, what, it's so rare that anybody would do anything with it that I imagine it's like a dormant part of the code. Although we had someone come in, I'm trying to think who is, Julia might remember. We had a person come in who complained because they had been following a very comprehensive tree planting and management. I don't want to call it a plan, certainly a course of action for their property. And he came in and talked about that. And then he was angry because he was being penalized for wanting to take some trees out when he had more than covered the canopy volume required and had done a lot of thoughtful planning, and thought that he was being penalized for all this proactive work he'd done. He'd done a lot of tree care, tree preservation, proactive work on his own. And there was no incentive for him to do that. So
Was this a recent?
this was probably 2 years ago. I think this man came to our meeting, talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So so it's in there. It's in there somewhere. So there is, so that's an incentive that's there. That if you have put together a sanctioned management plan for your property for trees, then you're afforded some latitude. And I don't know if that means in terms of fees you pay if you take a tree down, for permits and so on, but it's there. So, but I still think it would be worth taking up what Marty suggests, and that is a little investigation on what incentives are being enacted by other cities and see if they would work in Lake Forest Park. So I'm going to suggest, Marty, would you be interested in looking at what Kirkland's doing?
Yeah, I can do that.
That would be great. And see what, maybe at the next meeting, there's something to report there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a couple of comments here. Going back quite a long way, you were saying you're talking about Ashley having flexibility from situations where I've seen that Ashley has been involved with. She has a lot of flexibility and exercises it in a positive way. I mean, there was a thing on neighborhood.com about somebody complaining because they'd cut down a tree without realizing it was a tree. And, they ended up negotiating with Ashley, and she said, no fine, just replace it. And clearly she could have come down much harder. And the guy down the street has also been apparently negotiating with Ashley about things. So I think she has flexibility and uses it, so we don't need to spell out that she has flexibility. She's already using the flexibility.
But
the other comment is
I wonder if that needs to be sort of, I don't want to say more formalized, but I mean, even somebody who as comprehensive as Ashley might get into a position where there appears to be a contradiction in some of that flexibility, and some neighbors might recognize it, but I don't know. So
the comment I wanted to make is at the moment there's a kind of a there's a kind of a perverse incentive on the sidewalk strip trees. If they just up and die, permit says nothing. The tree code says if your tree dies, you can take it out. You're not responsible for replacing it.
Yeah, so what our code says is that if there's a dead tree on the property, they can remove it without a tree removal permit. We do ask that residents confirm with us prior to removal, but that's a provision within the code where they don't have to abide by any of the tree removal permit requirements.
So my point is, if you were not trying to be a nice person and you saw your tree out in front of your house getting sick, your best, rather than pay a tree doctor or negotiate with the city, let it die. So
Yeah.
it's a perverse incentive is all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm recommending that course or that I hope people will follow it, but I guess those street trees are kind of a different beast than the landscape trees in yards. And maybe they need to be more explicitly addressed in this tree code for the next revision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience working with the citizens, a lot of times people are surprised that we require a tree removal permit for sick trees, but not dead trees. And I've gotten a lot of pushback, but I administer the code when I help Ashley process tree permits. And so I don't have any leeway myself to be like, well, we can waive the fee or the permit requirement. And I don't know if Ashley has the leeway to do that either. But she may have a different interpretation.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times residents get upset when they hear that they have to pay to take out their sick tree.
Yeah, if we had, I mean, that's part of my, I'm constantly beating the drum that we need an arborist that has more hours available, because the arborist could then apply more of their expertise in this capacity to create incentive in a way, even if it's not labeled as incentive, like Doug was talking about, in terms of how they interpret the code, how they offer their expertise to homeowners, in terms of talking about tree problems and correcting tree problems. And then we have the issue of tree replacements and them being left, siting of tree replacements being left to homeowners who don't know where to put trees. And then that perpetuates a problem with the next generation of new trees if they're put in the wrong spots. And of course, an arborist would be great if they could lend their expertise to that decision too, but just requires more time. That would also be seen as an incentive, so I think the use of that word is important, where we have something happening that is incentive like Ashley's ability to deal with the code in different ways, so that people realize that it is a two-way street, and they're getting some of the good part as well as paying the fees. But so that's another thing. Doug's bringing up the street trees, the right of way, even where we don't have curbs and sidewalks, we still have right of way issues. And where we do have curbs and sidewalks, it's the same thing, but in a slightly different context with street trees. So those are troubling areas. There might be some more incentive ideas that could be applied there. Something to deal with dead trees, dangerous trees. And I liked Bryn's idea too about people who are in a financially difficult position, not being able to afford to deal with, tree care in the right of ways or in street trees and so on. So anyway, Marty, when you're investigating with Kirkland, pay particular attention to anything that they have that relates to this right of way street tree issue we were just talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, and there might be something else. Who knows? Maybe they've taken on something that'd be really important to us too. Hope so.
Well, one of the simplest things, and you just basically alluded to it, but if we could afford to have Ashley go out when somebody says the tree in front of my house is dying,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Ashley could do it instead of hiring a private guy or
Yeah.
private woman, either one, to do it. That would be a big incentive.
Yeah. Well, and she's doing a lot of things that are sort of, they're repetitive, they're accountant-like chores in amassing statistics and data and so on. If she had some interns, they could do that. So she could be out in the field applying her special expertise, to greater extent and greater utility. And that means getting grants, and there's grant money out there and she knows about it. So if we could get more grants and maybe dedicate the tree fund to it, so that she could do inventories, she could look at, community tree health problems, So you could help owners make decisions about where trees go and so forth. That's a lot more useful than just sitting in the office compiling statistics about what's been cut down, you know. All right, I'm going to move away from that topic at this point. I think since we've talked, we can now consider it old business for the next agenda, and maybe have some interesting information coming back to us from Marty's investigation. And maybe some of you will have thought of some other things too between now and the next meeting. So that would be great. So let's go to item number 10 on our agenda, which is front lines. And front lines with the tree board, which is anything you want to comment on that has to do with trees and anything you've seen in Lake Forest Park that you think is good or troubling that has to do with trees since the last time we met.
I want to make one comment, Tim.
Yeah.
And Marty and I were, not Marty, Margaret and I were talking about this today. That my crew is coming back in 2 weeks on Monday, the 16th.
Yeah.
To do some follow-up invasive removal at the McAleer site, and they will be using herbicide. And Marty is, Margaret is going to have that publicized on some fashion, just that it's happening. And I have emailed the president of the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation to let her know that it's happening, and hopefully this will appease the people who are so vehemently against our using herbicides. It's only going to be used, they're only spraying next to the road on bindweed, and whatever knotweed still survives, which is pretty minimal. So just to let you all know that that's happening a week from next Monday.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, I saw the, thanks for bringing that up. I saw the email about that. Yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, actually, when Julia and I talked about it, I just, I wanted to get the opinions of the rest of you, that I had talked at a previous meeting about coming up with some sort of newsletter article or something for a news flash from the city to try to preemptively educate citizens about why these herbicides need to be used and what's being done and the success story. But once I started talking to Julia about it, it occurred to me, is that opening Pandora's box? Should I not be, not be doing publicity that's like, hey, herbicides, here's why they're okay, here's the success. Should I just kind of let it lie? What do you all think is better? I mean,
Well, maybe there's another way to,
I'm one of
to frame it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying there might be another way to frame it so that it's not the, here's the we're doing herbicides. It's.
Yeah, I'm one of those citizens who I hear that word and I'm like, oh, yikes, why are we doing that? And Julia explained it to me.
Yeah.
So I know it's okay, but I'm wondering, what do you all think?
I think it's better to talk about it up front. I'd rather do
Yeah.
that. I'd rather hear about it, a reasoned explanation of it up front than have a truck go by and say, oh, they're spraying herbicide. What's going on here?
Right.
Yeah, and there's an approach to the framing it where you're avoiding stereotypes all the way around. It doesn't help to stereotype herbicides across the board as they're always bad. No, there's situations like we're dealing with where we have to make a choice. We're in a difficult position.
Mm-hmm.
And from an environmental standpoint, using them under these conditions, the shortcomings are, offset by the justification of dealing with these weeds, which bring much greater, difficulties to the community than the use of the herbicides.
So maybe I'll draft something. I'll draft up this little write-up and send it out to you all. And maybe if you all have any comments, I would love to get them to see if you think I'm taking the right approach.
That would be great, Margaret.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. Yeah, you'd almost.
I'm not convinced that sort of raising it to the whole city, telling the whole city we're using herbicides and thereby alerting all the people who, who'll get upset about it, who would probably never know about it, is necessarily a good idea. So that's sort of your original caution. And I think I kind of agree with you. If you start publicizing it citywide that we're using herbicides, you're going to, bring people out of the cracks who just oppose herbicides or who think Roundup caused them to go blind or something like that. I get emails every day inviting me to participate in Roundup suits.
Well, here's I guess
Yeah.
we have to take a different approach, and that is we are taking on our invasive plant problem comprehensively in Lake Forest Park.
Okay.
That's the headline. So that's the good thing, right? And then there's the little caveat, which is no one likes to use herbicides, but in this case, I mean,
Yeah.
we all agree that there can be troubling use of herbicides under certain circumstances, but here we're in a different position here,
Yeah.
and it starts with the news is that we're doing a great deal to control invasive plants that threaten our forest. It requires that we do this. This isn't something where, we would normally do or we would take on in a cavalier way, but, so the story isn't, hey, Lake Forest Park is using herbicides. The story
Yeah.
is, no, that we're controlling invasive species that
There you go.
threaten the community forest.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
Okay.
actually one of the things that Julia was talking about before was it's on a fairly steep, wet area. The picture you're talking about is a pretty steep, wet area, which of course makes the invasive plant problem worse. But also, as she was talking about this earlier, people are going to say, why can't you just use mechanical means? Why can't you just pull them out? And she was pointing out that you pull them out by the roots, you cause even more erosion.
Yeah.
To my mind, that's way, you do way more damage than it would with the herbicides. And I
Yeah.
speak to somebody with a steep hill in my backyard that has ivy on it.
Yeah,
So
you really
I think you could add that into your thing, well, why don't we just pull them out mechanically? Because.
habitat damage is greater that way.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Well, I need to get it to Cameron, like middle of next week. So I'll try and get something written up and sent out to you all this weekend. So you can let me know if you think it should be altered.
Yeah, Margaret,
Yeah.
I'll be gone after Monday next week, so I won't be able to see it. If you can get it to me on Sunday, I could look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Julie and Margaret. Anything else from the tree board then before we hear from Cameron? Cameron, I had a question. Did they take down the big giant sequoia?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull up Ashley's July tree permit list.
Okay.
So in total for July of 2021, there were five how do I phrase this? Five tree permit issue, or not five. There are 5 landmark trees removed and then 20 significant trees removed.
Cameron, sorry, can you zoom in, please?
Of course. Let me figure out a way to make this more legible.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, I see. Give me 1 second.
That's a lot
That's
better.
pretty
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
In terms of, does anyone have any questions about the July 21 tree permits?
So, and just as a reminder, the landmark trees are anything between, is it 24 inches in diameter and exceptional tree size?
Correct.
Yeah, so they can be pretty good
Well,
sized trees.
It depends because some exceptional tree species
Are small.
are small. Yeah, I think I'm not sure if it's Western red cedar, but if it's 12 inches in diameter for one of the trees, it might be Madrona. But if it's,
Madronas are, yeah, small.
Yeah, if it's madrona and it's 12 inches in diameter, it's considered exceptional. But for the most part, that's the only exception. But yeah, landmark trees, we categorize that, the city's code categorizes that as any tree with a diameter larger than 24 inches. And significant trees are trees with diameter between 6 inches and then 23.99 inches. And a permit is not required to remove any tree smaller than 6 inches.
Cameron, I should have known, I should know this by now, but when the status is submitted, does that mean it's new? It's not just that that they submitted it, but then decided not to follow through?
No, typically submitted means that they're either working through their noticing period. So there's a noticing period that's involved with the tree permit removal application. And that depends on the type of tree or the type of permit required, whether it's a major or a minor. There's a 48-hour noticing period for all minor permits. And for a major, it's a period of 2 weeks. So in terms of submitted, there could be some sort of condition where for a minor, they haven't picked up their tree permit notice, or they haven't come back to us, come back to planning to pick up their tree permit. Sometimes people will submit and then forget to pick their permits up. But usually for permits where they're in the submitted status, they're in some sort of limbo period where either Ashley is requesting more information from the applicant, or they haven't completed their noticing period, or they haven't just come pick it up from City Hall.
Okay. I just was hoping, I was kind of wishing there was a third category that said like Ashley talked them out of it, you know, or withdrawn. Because I just have to say, as I keep saying, it's really discouraging to me that pretty much every single one is approved.
Yeah,
so I assume people follow through with it and every single one is removed.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we require, because we do require them to either plant replacement canopy, or in certain cases, not in certain cases, but for minor permits, we do require a 1-to-1 replant ratio for the canopy. So if they're taking out like 1,500 square feet of canopy or 500 square feet of tree canopy, they have to plant a replacement amount that either meets or exceeds the existing canopy level. And for a major, sorry, they just need to meet the canopy coverage goal for their parcel, and that depends on the zoning. And if they already meet it with the removal of that tree that they're proposing to remove, or that they're going to remove, then they don't have to replant. But if they're off by a certain amount, we do require that they replant.
Okay, but that goal, that's with 30 years of growth, right? That's
for
that time period. Yeah,
that's 30 years of growth.
Okay.
But the city's code outlines canopy coverage, minimum canopy coverage goals for all zone parcels within the city's boundary. So that's the Ashley uses the parameter outlined in the code as her guidance, I guess. I'm not sure if that's the right word to use in this context, but she uses that to make this determination of whether they meet that or not.
Right, yeah, because I think it's the bigger size properties are the 58% goal, and smaller properties are that 39%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm just.
So Cameron, is the arborist ever overruled by, say, the director of planning or anybody like that?
Not that I'm familiar with, to be honest.
You haven't been there long enough to know.
I've only been with the city since April, and I haven't seen it during my time here so far. Now, just because I'm not familiar doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't happen, but I haven't seen it happen.
Yeah, I wondered if she might have some denials and they might get overturned. But,
Mhm.
there have been, I've attended, I don't know, maybe 3 contested where tree removals were denied, and then there was I forgot what you call it. It's
Like
there's a
mediation,
judge, it's like a judge involved,
Oh, a
mediation.
hearing decision.
Yeah, a hearing decision, yeah. Yeah, I've
I'm
been to
not
about 3 of
sure.
them.
I'm not, or public hearing, I'm sorry. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if there's any instance where a tree removal permit would require a public hearing.
Hearing examiner, Mike says, yeah.
Examiner, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I think perhaps in the case of like in our tree code, there's something about like a proactive forest management permit. Perhaps that might require hearing examiner. I would be surprised if it was not a ministerial, if the decision was not ministerial and it was determined by a hearing examiner.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, the
typically,
ones I've been to hearings where there were about denials of too many landmark trees at once, or
Okay.
exceptional trees, wanting to remove an exceptional tree.
I see. So yeah, there probably has been, but like I said earlier, I've only been with the city for a few months now, and I haven't seen it during my time here.
Okay.
So Mike D asked a few questions. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where tree permit number 100 is. And in terms of why there isn't a coverage goal listed for number 87, I'm not sure why Ashley did not include that, but I do know that they are required to replant 2,100 square feet, and the permit that was issued was a minor.
Oh,
So
okay.
for minor, it's just a 1-to-1.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh,
Is that it, Cameron?
Yeah, that's it. Any
Okay.
other questions? Does anyone have any specific questions that I can pose towards Ashley?
yeah. It's not 1-for-1 though for the significant. I thought you had to replace the square the canopy area.
1-to-1 for minor.
1-to-1 for minor.
So
Yeah.
you can take out 2,100 square feet. You only have to put in 2 trees.
No, you have to replace the same canopy in square footage. So they're gonna have to replace 2,100 square feet.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's most likely going to be more than 2 trees. That's what I'm saying. It's not really 1-for-1 to get 2,100
Well,
square feet. You need pretty good sized trees.
It's 1-to-1 for canopy coverage, not
Okay,
for the
okay,
number
got
of
it.
trees removed.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, sorry.
So we covered at this meeting, certainly we've got for the next agenda, just for now, and there'll probably be other items that'll be added when the agenda's, the full draft is put together, will be incentives will move to old business. And Cameron, what was that item we were talking about at the beginning that I asked you to be sure was put on for the next agenda? I can't remember what it was.
Regarding the Sound Transit BRT
Yes.
FIFA.
Yeah. What's going on with the Sound Transit project? Okay. Yeah. We should consider an update, and then that would come out of your office, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would probably designate that as communication.
Okay. We still have the question of vice chair. That'll have to come up again. So there's 3 items for the next agenda. There may be some other things too. And by the way, all of you, and Cameron and I were talking about this, the idea of getting this draft agenda out to you a little bit earlier. Cameron's been good about getting it out to you on a Friday before our next Wednesday meeting. But do look at the agenda, and if there's something you want to see on it, then suggest it at that point when you receive the draft agenda. Okay? So I don't want to feel like it's just Cameron and I that are putting the agenda together all the time.
Didn't we talk about trying to do the Ivy Out competition this fall?
Yeah, we did.
So we should talk about that next time so it can maybe get going in October, right? October, November.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably on the work plan too. One thing that I won't be doing it, but Margaret, you'll want to do is look at our work plan to see what, like the Ivy Out, there might be some other things that are due in the fall too. So it's one reason I put the incentives on there. There was something on the work plan that I was responsible for. So I feel like I've met that responsibility by throwing it on the agenda and letting you guys deal with it down the road now. Anyhow, so.
And then I wanted to mention as well, if any of the board members have items that they'd like to propose to be added to the agenda, feel free at any time to send me an email and discuss that with me, and I could discuss it with Margaret during our meeting later this month when we get together to craft the agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, that connects with what I was just saying a minute ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we've had this, really kind of closed agenda setting thing, and it'd be nice to make sure everybody's feeling like they can have some input on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What's left on on our agenda for this meeting? Is that it?
Yeah, adjournment is the next item.
Adjournment. Well, I have to say a warm and fond goodbye to you guys. This will be it for me, and I'm in the midst of a very chaotic sort of pre-moving segment at this point, getting the old house in Lake Forest Park all up to snuff so that nobody who's interested in buying it is going to have complaints about something that's broken or doesn't work, or so I'm playing handyman at the moment. I'm not very good at it, but I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, so I won't be gone for a little while. I might see you at the town center or something in the interim period here for the next month and a half. All right. So it's, as George Costanza used to say, it's been real. Yeah. All right. So a fond arrivederci. And do I have a motion to adjourn? Come on, you guys.
All right, so move.
All right. A second.
Second.
All right. You guys all take care.
Thank you
All
so much,
You
Tim.
too. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Tim. Now you've
Thanks,
left
everyone.
me the sole remaining.
Good night,
member.
everyone.
Yeah,
Margaret, before you
that's right,
sign off,
Julia. Okay.
Margaret,
Good night, all.
What's that?
good night, Tim. I hope you can encourage Bryn to join the tree board. It seems like her expertise would be really interesting to have around.
I think she will. And she's a real go-getter and very organized and good at, getting people involved in things. So she'd be great. And yeah. And you live in Val Easton's old house, don't you, Doug?
Yeah.
I'd love to come get a tour of your garden someday. And you would.
Get a tour, not give. Yeah, it's not exactly the way it was when Val left it. She left it 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I only had a quick glimpse of it once, so you don't have anything to live up to, but you would love to. I mean, if you like nice gardens, you would love Bryn's. It's amazing. It's amazing. And she's right down the street from me on 38th. We're right up the hill from you.
Okay.
The Halloween house?
No, we only moved here 6 years ago. I don't know I know where a couple of good Halloween houses are, but they are back in our old neighborhood.
Okay. Well, anyway, we're just a few blocks uphill from you. So yeah, I will encourage her. Yeah.
As you know, ours is a Halloween street. We have like 300 people on Halloween. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta go get some dinner. Belatedly.
Yeah.
Cameron.
Thank you so much.
Good
Take
night,
care.
you guys.
I'll get in touch with you.
Okay, thanks, Cameron.
Bye.